So, good morning, ma'am. I'm Edrica Merganda, and I will discussing about world, world trade and overview. In 2015, the world has a whole produced goods and service worth about 74 trillion at current price. Second, world trade in goods and service exceeded 21 trillion. That's a whole lot of exporting and importing. Who trades with whom? Data on trade in service are less well broken down by trading partner. We will talk about the rising importance of trade in Figure 1 show the total of value of trade in goods export plus imports between the United States and its top 15 trading partners in 2015. Oh. Service and the issues raised by that trade later. In this chapter, taken together, these 15 countries accounted for 75% of the value of US trade in that year. So, size matters, the gravity models. Out of the 15 partner countries, European nations such as Germany, United Kingdom, and France has strong partnership with the United States as, uh, as they are considered to have largest European economy. These countries have the highest value of gross domestic product (GDP), which measure that the value of all goods and services produced. Second, there is a strong empirical relationship between the size of a country economy and the volume of both its imports and export. So the size of European economies and the value of their trade with the United States. So yun Germany, United Kingdom, France has the highest economy based on GDP. Ano siya pinakadako GDP based on my understanding. So on the horizontal x is each country GDP expressed as percentage of the total GDP of the European uh, Union. On the vertical axis it's its country share of the total trade of the United States with the EU. As you can see, the so muna siya ay France, United Kingdom, Germany muna siya ay dako og GDP. So this figure to show the size of European economies and the value of their trade with the United States. Gravity model of world trade. The name of the analogy of Newton's law of gravity, where gravitational attraction between any two objects is proportional to the product of their mass and diminish with distance. Second, therefore, the trade between two countries is other things equal proportional to the product of their GDP and diminish with distance. Third, economists often estimate a somewhat more general gravity model of the following form. These equations say that the three things that determine the volume of trade between two countries are the size of the two countries' GDP and the distance between the countries without especially assuming that trade is proportional to the product of the two GDP and inversely proportional distance. Large economies tend to spend large amounts on import because they have large income. Second, tend to attract large share of other countries' spending because they have produced a wide range of products. So, based on my understanding, the large economy tend to spend large amount of import because they have large income. They also tend to attract large share of other countries spending because they produce wide range of product. So other things equal the trade between any two economies in larger in either economy. In figure 2, we can say that the gravity model fits the data on US trade with European countries pretty well, but not perfectly. Second, in figure 2, we see that the Netherlands, Belgium, and Ireland trade considerably more with the United States than a gravity model would have predicted. So this using the gravity model looking for anomalies. Impeding, impediments to trade, distant barriers and the borders. Canada and Mexico is added in trading with the United States. Second, estimated gravity models show a strong negative effect of distance on international trade. Third, economists also believe that less tangible factors play a crucial role. So, based on my understanding, um, Canada and Canada and Mexico, as you can see, these two neighbors of the United States. So, honestly, kuan ng neighbors. So, kung neighbor sila, mas dali ilahang mo-trade sila og kuan. Mo-trade sila og kuan agreement. So, in addition to being US neighbors, Canada and Mexico are part of a trade agreement. So, nasa like agreement ba with the United States of North American Trade Agreement or NAFTA, which ensure the most good and cheap among the three countries are not subject to tariffs. It's important to note, however, that although trade agreements often involve formal barriers to trade between countries, they rarely make national border relevant even its most goods and services shipped across national border pay no tariffs and face few legal restrictions. There is much more trade between regions of the same country between equivalent is created a region of different countries. So based on our understanding is kini siya, it's all about ang Mexico ug Canada. So duol naman silang duha, di ba? Kung duol silang duha, mas madako ang lahang economy. Kay imbes aning Germany, United Kingdom, France, Italy, Spain, Belgium, lagi-lagi ang magud sila. So maglisod sila og ted sila hang kuan GDP. Maglisod sila og kuan ba? Kuha og kuan, kuha og mga ila import, ila i-trade. So sa Canada ug Mexico kay naman na sila trade agreement, so mas sayon mas mo lambo gud sila. So this figure to show economic size and trade with the United States. So figure 4. So ako nasabtan ni ano siya, the changing pattern of world trade. World trade is a moving target. The direction and composition of world trade is quite different today from what it was a generation ago, and even more different from what it was century ago. Let's look at some of the main trends. World trade is moving target, the direction and composition of world trade. So, ano siya akong gi-discuss ganina. In contrast, it meant that modern transportation and communication have abolished distance, so world has become small place. Internet makes instant and almost free communication possible between people thousands of miles apart. Gravity model continue to show strong negative relationship between distance and international trade. So, akong nasabtan ani kay it's all about kan sa una kay maglisod man ta og communicate sila ha. Sa una kay magsulat pa, dugay pa siya maabot, dugay pa siya ma-send sa buyer. So akong nasabtan ko ani kay paskaro na nay Facebook, na cellphone, dali ra gyud kay siya ini every one day lang dali lang sinim niya ang message na mga na airplane, na bangka, na man na barko. So dali ra gyud sa di pa sa una nga maglakaw pa ka, ibutang pa rin mo sa butang pa nimo sa envelope, tay pila pa ka days ang babasahan. So muna sa akong gikan guys, has the world gotten smaller? Sabot ani niya. So ang world gotten smaller, ang kuan ba ang pagbuyer ba ang pag-trade trading ba ni gamay kay tungod na mga internet, na communication, na high tech na ron ba. So lahi ra pa sa una nga nasag binago sa ikaasaban. Because the answer is yes, but history also show the political force can outweigh the effect of technology. So ang technology mo siya nakausog nakausog siya. The world got smaller between 1840 and 1914, but it too bigger again for much of the 20th century. Economic historian tell us that global economy with strong economic between even distant nation is not new. In fact, there have been two great waves of globalization, globalization with the first wave relying not on jet and internet but on railroad, steamship, and the telegraph. In 1919, the great economist John Maynard Keynes described the result of the surge of globalization. So, in this graph, the ratio of world export of manufactured goods to world industrial production show here as an index with 1953 rose in the decades before World War I but fell sharply in the face of wars and protectionism. It didn't return to 1913 level until the 1970 but has since reached new high. So ako sabtan ani kung ang world trade among business mo mo taas mo lalo na pod hindi mo taas hindi mo gas na siya mag increase o decrease then mo increase yung maayo the fall and rise of the world risk. Figure 5 show the fall and rise of world trade. So since the world trade as share of world production has risen unprecedented high. Manufactured goods such as automobile, computers and clothing, agricultural products, fuels and mining products, commercial service. So muna siya agricultural product 80%, fuel and mining products 12%, manufactured 56.5%, commercial service 23.5%. So akong nasabtan ani kay sa una mas dako ang fuel and mining products. So yung to nigamay nimo sa 12 yung agricultural products kanang automobile ng agricultural products kanang kuan ng manufactured kanang fuel mining plus anang copper. So what do we trade?
Hello, nandyan po pala kayo.
A more recent transformation has been the rise of third world export of manufactured goods. The term third world and developing countries are applied to world war nations. Modern information technology make it possible to perform some economic function as long range when a service previously done within a current country is shifted to a foreign location. The chain is known as service offshoring, sometimes known as service offshoring, outsourcing. So figure to the spy. So as long distance as the figure to show the study of conclude that about 60% of total US employment consists of jobs that must be done close to the customer banking, making them non-terrible. So muna siyang kuan, yeah, mining, pila ka buok, utilities, construction, pila ka percent, agricultural percent, manufacture 12%, so, retail, wholesale 7%, professional service 14%, education, health 0%, professional service 2%, other service 1%, public administration 2%. Mag-1 pa sa una. Mas estimate ran siya based on this graph. Estimate based on trade within the United States suggests that trade in service may eventually become bigger than trade in manufacture. So figure 6 showed figure 6 showed the terrible industry share of employment. The gravity model relates the trade between any two countries to the size of their economies. Using the gravity model also reveals the strong effect of distance and international borders. Second, international trade is at record levels relative to the size of the world economy. Third, manufactured goods dominate modern trade today. And lastly, developing countries in particular have shifted from being mainly exporters of primary products to being exporters of manufactured goods. That's my summary. So, my second report is Chapter 3, Labor Productivity and Comparative Advantages, the Ricardian Model. Countries engage in international trade for two basic reasons, each of which contributes to their gain from trade. 1. Countries trade because they are different from each other. 2. Countries trade to achieve economy of scale in production. As a first step forward, understanding the cause and effect of trade. However, it is useful to look simplified models in which only one of these motivates is present. The concept of comparative advantages. Republican presidential candidate Patrick Buchanan make a speech denouncing the growing imports of flowers into the United States. Second, the case of winter rose offers an excellent example of the reason why international trade can be beneficial. Third, economists use the term opportunity cost to describe such trade of the opportunity cost of process in terms of computer is the number of computers that could be produced with the resources used to produce a given number of port. This difference in opportunity cost offer the possibility of mutually beneficial rearrangement of world production. So what happened? The world is producing just as many roses as before, but it is now producing more computer. So this rearrangement of production with the United States concentrating on computer and Colombia concentrating of rose increase the size of the world economy. The concept of comparative advantages, the reason that international trade product increase in the world output, in that it allows each country to specialize in producing the goods in which it has comparative advantages. Second, a country has comparative advantages in producing a good if the opportunity cost of producing that good in terms of the other goods is lower in that country than it is in other country. Trade between two countries can benefit both countries if each country export the goods in which it has a comparative advantages. What one factor economy. First, to introduce the role of comparative advantages in determining the pattern of international trade, we begin by imagining that we are dealing with economy which we call home that has only one factor of production. Second, the technology of home's economy can be summarized. Labor productivity in its industry expressed in terms of the unit labor requirement to the number of hours of labor required to produce a pound of cheese wine. Production possibilities. Any economy has limited resources. There are limits on what it can produce and there are always trade-offs to produce more. One of good economy must sacrifice some production of another good. Production possibilities. The economy has limited resources. There are limits on what it can produce, and there are always trade-offs to produce more of one good. The economy must sacrifice some production of another good. These trade-offs are illustrated graphically by a production possibility planner. Relative price and supply. Illustrative differing mix of good economy can produce to determine what the economy will actually produce. However, we need to look price. Actually, we need to know relative price of the economy to goods that is the price of good turns in the other. Trade in a one-factor world. To describe the pattern and the effects of trade between two countries, when each country has only one factor of production, it is simple. Second, suppose there are two countries, one of them we again call home and the other we call foreign. Each of these countries has one factor of production, labor, and can produce two goods. In, in general, the unit labor requirements can follow any pattern. For example, home could be less productive than foreign in wine but more productive in chess or vice versa. Sorry. Assume that the ratio of labor required to produce a pound of cheese that required to produce a gallon of wine is lower in home than it is in foreign. Remember, the ratio of unit labor requirements is equal to the opportunity cost of cheese in terms of wine. Now remember also that we define comparative advantages precisely in terms of some opportunity cost. When one of when One country can produce a unique good with less labor than another country. We say that the first country has
La.
an absolute advantages in producing that good. In our example is the home. Determining the relative price after trade. Price of internationally trade goods like other prices are determined by supplies and demand. Partial equilibrium analysis to study a single market. General equilibrium analysis takes account of the linkage between the two markets. Trade in the one-factor world to describe the pattern and effect of trade between two countries. Each country has only one factor of production is simple. Suppose there are two countries, one of them we can call home and the other we call foreign. Each of these countries has a factor production labor and can produce whole goods. In general, unit labor requirements can follow pattern. For example, home could be less productive foreign, but more productive cheese or vice versa. Assume that the ratio labor required to produce one is regarding produce balloon. Determine relative price after trade. Price is internationally trade goods like other price determined by supply demand. Partial equilibrium analysis study single market. General equilibrium analysis take account of the link between the two markets. Relative the gain from trade. Relative labor productivities differ across industries to specialize in the production of different goods. They show the both of countries their gain from trade from the specialization. The mutual gain can be demonstrated in two alternative ways to show that specialization and trade are beneficial to think of trade as an indirect method of production to examine how trade affects in-country possibilities for consumption. A note of relative grades politically discuss the international trade as oftentimes focuses no comparison of rates in different countries. Misconception about comparative advantages. Night trade is beneficial only if your country is strong enough to stand up to foreign competition. Micro foreign competition is unfair and hurts other countries within it based on low wage or labor agreement. Mighty trade exploit a country and make it worse of it. It will receive much lower wage than works in other nations. Comparative advantages with many goods rely on a model in which only two goods are produced and consumed. This simplified analysis allows us to capture many essential points about comparative advantages and traits in terms of settings of the model. Second, relative weights and specialization. Three, determine the relative weights in multi-good model. Adding transport costs and non-trade goods. Transportation costs do not change the fundamental principles of comparative advantages gained from trade. Second, there are three main reasons why specialization in the real international economy is not this extreme. 1. The existence of more than one factor of production reduces the tendency towards specialization. Second, countries sometimes protect industries from foreign competition. And third, it is costly to transport goods and services. In some cases, the cost of transportation is enough to lead the countries into sufficiency in certain sectors. Empirical evidence of the Ricardian model. The Ricardian model of international trade is an extremely useful tool for thinking about the reason why trade may happen and about the effect of international trade on national welfare. The Ricardian model predicts an extreme degree of specialization that we do not observe in the real world. Assume, assume a way effect of international trade on the distribution of income within countries. The model allows to the role of difference in resources among countries as a cost of trade. Neglects the possible role of economies of scale as cost of trade which leave unable to explain the large trade flows between apparently similar nations. Adding transport costs and non-trade goods. Transportation costs do not change the fundamental principles of comparative advantages gained from trade. There are three main reasons coefficient in the real international economy is not stream. The extent of more than one factor of production reduces the tendency toward specialization. Second, the country sometimes protect industries from foreign inflation. And third, it is costly to transport goods and services. In some cases, the cost of transportation enough to lead countries into self-sufficiency in certain sectors. Ano lang ba ito? Sorry. Summary: we examine the Ricardian model, the simplest model that show how different between countries give rise to the trade and gain from trade. Second, in the Ricardian model, countries will export goods that their labor produce relatively efficiency and will import goods that their labor produce relatively inefficiently. We can show the benefits country is either in two ways. The distribution of the gain from trade depends on the relative price of the goods countries produce. The proposition that trade is beneficial in qualified, mm, extending the one of factor to good model to a world of many commodities does not alter this conversion. And lastly, while some of the prediction of Ricardian model clearly realistic, its basic prediction that countries will tend to export goods in which they have relatively high productivity has been confirmed by a number of studies. Thank you for listening. I hope you understand my report. And thank you, ma'am. Thank you, classmate. God bless. Thank you all.